The land of Scotland, the home of my ancestors, has decided that yelling freedom could get you thrown in jail. Fortunately, Harry Potter author JK Rowling is defying this new anti free speech law that has everyone troubled. Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side. Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Berry. Welcome to StudioJake vidcasts. This is where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out my locals community. It's where you can support the channel. All right, so this is very troubling. On my mom's side, I am Irish Cajun. On my dad's side, I am Scottish Nordic. I'm very proud of my heritage, and I celebrate them often. Now, one of the cooler aspects of my ancestry is my Scottish heritage. I'm very proud of it, being from the land of Celts, the land of the Highlanders, and beautiful mountain ranges and castles and just rich history. However, if you're watching this, whether you be in the United States or if I somehow land in the feet of a Scot, this new law that the Scottish government has imposed on its citizens is disturbing. It is a hate speech law. At least that's what they're trying to say. It is actually a censorship law that could get you thrown in jail for just stating facts. And Scottish citizen, or maybe she lives in Scotland. I'm not really sure, but point is, author JK Rowling has taken a stand against this law and has defied it. And I'm really appreciative of this. So, this is according to The Blaze. Author J.K. Rowling dared Scottish police to arrest her on Monday after a new law on hate crime took effect in Scotland. Passed in 2021, the Hate Crime and Public Order Scotland Act broadens an existing law prohibiting stirring up of hatred, which was outlawed in the United Kingdom in 1986. Keep that year in mind. Continuing on. But that law banned only acts that stirred up racial hatred. The new law, which only applies to Scotland, introduces new offenses for threatening or abusive behavior, which is intended to stir up hatred based on prejudice towards characteristics including age, disability, religion, sexual orientation, transgender identity, and variations in sex characteristics, according to the Scottish government. In honor of the new law, Rowling, who lives in Scotland, posted a social media thread that seemingly violates the new law. The thread highlights transgender people who have committed crimes and explains how trans ideology harms real women. Even transgender activist India Willoughby acknowledged the list of people that Rowling highlighted as full of offenders. At the end of her thread, Rowling dared the authorities to arrest her. I'm currently out of the country, but if what I've written here qualifies as an offense under the terms of the new act, I look forward to being arrested when I return to the birthplace of the Scottish Enlightenment, she said, adding the hashtag #ArrestMe. According to the Harry Potter author, Scottish lawmakers, by enacting the law, have placed higher value on the feelings of men performing their ideas of femaleness, however misogynistically or opportunistically, than on the rights of freedom on the rights and freedoms of actual women and girls. The law then is wide open to abuse, Rowling explains, and silences people like her brave voices pushing back against trans ideology. For several years now, Scottish women have been pressured by their government and members of the police force to deny the evidence of their ears and eyes, repudiate biological facts, and embrace a neo-religious concept of gender that is unprovable and untestable, Rowling said. Ultimately, she warned that freedom of speech and belief are at the end in Scotland if the accurate description of biological sex is deemed criminal. Hours after Rowling's initial thread went viral, she responded to calls for an investigation into her comics. Totally agree. I've been deliberately defiant in spite of some random bloke's advice. A full investigation must be mounted. Hashtag arrest me, she said. Also, visit Scotland, land of the free, she mocked. So, I'm often asked, hey, Jacob, how come you're not really an Anglophile? You say your favorite author is Arthur Conan Doyle. You often quote Charles Dickens or Jane Austen. You say how much you love their books. You enjoy C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien, yet you are always hypercritical of Europe. This is why. I don't know who needs to hear this, but freedom of speech has become a uniquely American thing. Back in 1776, our founding fathers looked ahead and they saw what was coming. Now, to be fair, freedom of speech started out as a unique thing. Greek philosophers talked about the necessary need for people to be able to say whatever was on their mind without repercussions. Christianity made this even wider. Why? Because Christians were persecuted, right? They were persecuted for saying Jesus is Lord. They were thrown in prison, they were fed to lions, they were burned in lanterns, they were maimed, they they were subjected to all kinds of torture. Yes, I know people purporting to do this in the name of Christianity did do terrible things. Okay, fine. Yes, I understand all that. But it stands to reason that because of Christianity, people were free to speak their minds. However, around the time of the Great War, what people call World War One, this new political philosophy called socialism was on the rise. I don't know how our founding fathers foresaw this. Maybe it was an idea that was percolating in 1776. I can't seem to figure that out. As far as I can see, socialism was on the rise more in the 1800s and up until the Great War, but it exploded in popularity in Europe. Here's the thing: freedom of speech is bad for socialism, for its meaner siblings, Marxism, communism, Maoism, and fascism. Freedom of speech is important, and Europe has turned its back on free speech since the rise of communism, since the rise of socialism, since the rise of fascism. All left-wing ideologies. Yes, I said it. Now, that's not to say right-wing ideologies can't produce some form of tyrannical government. Obviously, military dictatorships, rule of the aristocracy, supreme monarchs, those are all forms of right-wing tyranny. So don't get me wrong. And free speech is bad to them too. But what we're seeing in Europe is an explosion of socialism, an explosion of Marxism and communism that we've never seen before in our lifetime. You can see this censorship law that Scotland is basing theirs on was enacted in England in 1986. That's how far back this goes. That's why when people are like, oh, Jacob, Europe, Enlightenment. It's been a long time since the Enlightenment. In America, you better wake up because they're already trying to do things like this in the United States. California has enacted censorship laws. President Biden has tried to enact laws that would shut down social media platforms just because there's dissidence that goes against the narrative. They already did this to Parler. Remember Parler? It was a free speech kind of, I'll be honest, Twitter knockoff that was gaining so much popularity, but because some people that the government didn't like used it, they had Amazon shut it down and Parler never recovered as a result. Now, I've heard that they've been bought out and it might make a return. Great. Not the point. The point is the government under, or I should say, a giant corporation owned by Jeff Bezos, a Democrat megadonor, by the way, at the auspices of the government, he shut down Parler. That was a big blow against free speech. And they're continuing to do this. And in Europe, whatever you might say, there is no freedom of speech. Maybe in some countries, like Italy is reforming right now, right? But otherwise, you can't go to Germany and you can't talk about the bad guys of World War II. You can't um, engage in mockery of whoever the current leader of Turkey is. That gets you in jail. In France, you can't proselytize. In the UK, you can't silently pray outside of an abortion clinic. And now in Scotland, if you say that marriage is between a man and a woman and you are what biology has made you, you can now go to jail. How long before they're arresting dissident filmmakers or artists or writers like JK Rowling? Soon. And it's coming here in the United States. That's why it's so important to vote for people who are for free speech. Now, obviously, I'm not a total free speech absolutist. I don't think you can go next door and threaten your neighbor with violence. A threat is not covered by freedom of speech in the United States. However, saying mean things, rude things, lying is all covered in the United States Constitution. You know how they always say, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater? actually, you can. The United States Supreme Court said you can do that. You will face consequences for starting a panic, but it's not a violation of your freedom of speech. And that is the hardcore truth. We need to pay attention. We need to look at these laws like the TikTok ban. Now, listen, I'm on TikTok. I think it should be banned. It's clearly China trying to influence our young people, which is why I'm on it. I want to add a counter narrative to what the communists are pushing on our children. I want to be an alternative where they can go and see some good vibes as opposed to evil vibes. And I think it should be banned. However, the TikTok law was this broad thing that gave the president power to shut down any social media platform he wants. That's despicable. It's dishonest. And even Republicans went along with this. That's why I always say, that's why I'm an independent now. I used to be a hardcore Republican. I used to be a Democrat. I went from Democrat to Republican, and now I'm independent. I'm an independent. I tend to approach things from free speech perspective, and people should protect their free speech. This is absolutely important, and you need to understand what is going on here. Scotland now will jail people who shout freedom instead of celebrating them. And that's horrible. But be careful, because it's coming in the United States. And we need to protect ourselves with our votes, with our wallets, and any other way we can.
Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH, country limit. I don't need